Would please rise for the Lord's Prayer? In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
My glasses here.
Council Broderick.
Councilor Broad.
Council Broderick.
He will be last.
It's the last meeting.
The meeting
We
today.
met earlier this
Oh.
morning and we're going
Oh, that
alphabetical.
counts.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
And Councilor Broderick.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, we have the minutes from the December 13th meeting for acceptance.
Motion to accept the
Move to
minutes of the
accept this.
meeting.
Motion to accept by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Caulfield. Minutes are accepted and placed on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have unfinished business to ratify 5 votes taken at the emergency council meeting held on December 30, 2005. It would take one roll call unless there's a request to take them separately. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes?
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Present.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
Okay, under petitions, we have 1 claim for property damage. Motion to refer to the Law Department by Councilor Milanazzo, second by Councilor Rita Mercier. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's referred to the Law Department. We have 1 request for no parking sign and 2 requests for a handicap sign. The motion to refer to the traffic engineer by Councilor Donahue, second by Councilor Broderick. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Donahue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on, certainly on the handicap sign, they're always important. One in particular seems pretty compelling. Do we have any idea how long, or can this be expedited, or?
We'll try to get it done as quickly as possible, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Well, I agree, but we received a notice that because the ground is hard, they won't be putting on signs, not able to put them in the ground for some time. So is there a substitute option to do that for these?
Yeah, I didn't think of that. We'll try to figure something
Okay.
out.
Okay, any subcommittee reports? Okay, for the motions,
Mr. Mayor, before you go into motions, I'd just like to bring up an issue. A few months ago, I filed a motion for seminars at the senior center, Mr. Manager, and to give elderly and anyone who would like to learn how to file an abatement. We all receive our tax bills today, and exemptions. So if we could follow up on that and publicize it in the paper and let it be known that there will be seminars for anyone wishing to learn how to file an abatement or who needs an assistance to file an abatement. I appreciate that. Thank you.
okay. First motion is by Councilor Caulfield that the city council request the city manager have the Parks Department make upgrades at the Children's Park on Commonwealth Avenue, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I know Councilor Elliott, myself, many of my colleagues have filed this motion, and I heard the manager on the radio, and a constituent called the manager up and requested that this would happen, and that's the gist of the motion, Mr. Manager, to see if we can upgrade that park and make it as good as any park we have in the city for the children. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, Councilor Donahue?
Oh, I'm sorry. On this and other parks, I know Friends of Shed Park are having fundraisers trying to upgrade the equipment and so forth. Can we get a report at some point as to what policy there is, or if we have one, in terms of how we're dealing with these parks? I mean, I think it's great, you know, for people to do private fundraising. I know it's been done in other parks, but you know, maybe we should be thinking about, do we need some kind of set policy so that there's, you know, equitable treatment across the city in terms of monies expended and where they come from. So just for future planning.
Okay, Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's very important to me, and I hope to gosh that the new mayor would keep me on the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee, because I really, truly enjoyed that. And I know that there's a lot of work going on with the Shed Park area and the private people having fundraisers left and right, as Councilor Donahue has said. And I know that we all like to get more information, and I know that the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, Tom Belgard, does the best that he can with putting in monies and requests for monies to the CDBG. And now the area that encompasses a certain strategic point where it's been lifted that certain things, areas that didn't apply, wasn't considered before, are now considered as part of CDBG eligible. Having said that, this probably would be eligible, but he can only put in a certain amount of money each year, and you know that the money goes really quickly, and there's more and more people looking for it, nonprofits and the city as well. But I remember many years ago, and my colleagues will remember too, about 10 years ago, it first started out at the Riley School that on Douglas Road, where they raised money, and the city matched it dollar for dollar, and it came to something like $25,000, and the city matched it $25,000. Then it came that other areas were doing the same thing, and it got to be too expensive for the city to match it, so they put a cap on it of perhaps $5,000, but they would do $5,000 and then in-kind services. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, could you look and check with the commissioner to see if that is out there again this time, so that we could know that? Thank you.
Thank you. I know, Mr. Manager, that there is a citizens group raising money for this park as well. Some of us have received invitations and been to some of the events there. So I think the motion is very timely, as are the other requests for the councilors. Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is adopted. Okay, the next motion is a motion by Councilor Caulfield that the City Council request the City Manager have the Human Relations Department look into ways and means of reducing cost of providing health care benefits to city retirees. Second by Councilor Mercier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to let my colleagues know that the gist of this motion is certainly not to dilute or weaken the medical coverage that our employees are receiving right now. I did some examinations throughout the budgets. In fiscal year 2000, the cost for medical insurance and Medicare for the municipal part of the government and the school employees was $13,500,000. In 2006, medical and insurance and Medicare coverage for those employees is $27,884,985. The Lowell Sun had quite an article in the Sunday paper, headlines, 2 pages, about how medical coverage is going up every single year. This has gone up $2.5 million a year, Mr. Manager. And I'd like to see if the Human Resources would convene a meeting here in City Hall and invite other communities, other municipalities to be involved with that meeting, Barica, Chelmsford, Drake, Tewksbury, Tingsville, Westford, and any other community, to find out what they're doing about the high cost, what can we do about the high cost, and see if we can form a coalition to see if we can reduce the cost of the healthcare insurance. It's escalating. I had a long talk with you, Mr. Manager, about this, and with Jim Kennedy. It's going to continue to go up. So it's up to this administration and this elected body to find ways and means to reduce those costs. $14,384,985 in 6 years. So that's the gist of my motion, and I certainly hope my colleagues would support it. Just to take a look to see how we can reduce the costs, but also offer that same quality care that we're giving our employees now. What I'm looking for is a regional approach to form a coalition. And hopefully the suburbs and the towns and the suburbs would grasp that olive branch we're handing out to them and get involved with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. This is a good motion. I mean, it's obviously something that is happening not just here, but across the country, and it's like a runaway freight train. You know, I think any and all approaches should be explored. Councilor Caulfield suggesting regional. One of the other issues that anytime contract negotiations come up, we have explored the possibility of, you know, steering employees to HMOs rather than Blue Cross Blue Shield, which they've been reluctant to do. But it's come to the point, certainly in private industry, major changes are made. You know, employees right now, I believe, are still contributing 25% of the cost, and the city is paying, I think in most of the contracts, 75%. That may have to change in future negotiations, and nobody wants to see, you know, families strapped, you know, employees strapped trying to make health care costs, but this is an astronomical increase, and so the city may be left with very few choices, and maybe the time to start exploring this is, you know, when you're not in a current negotiating cycle, but before you get to the bargaining table, so that it's laid out, you know, pretty clearly that these are the options. The city can only go in one or two or three directions, but something's got to give, because doing business the old way, you know, the numbers don't lie in terms of the increase, more than, you know, 100% increase in 5 years, and so, you know, that's something that is, they're very big numbers, and you know, I think this is a timely motion to explore now, when we're not actively in negotiations with the unions.
Mr. Mayor, if
Councilor Caulfield?
if I add, this cost is 10% of our budget, 10%, and it's going to escalate next year and the following years. And I think we just have to take a long, hard look at the cost, and we have to offer quality health care to our employees, but I think we have the responsibility to take a look, how can we reduce the cost and give that quality health care at the same time?
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, I remember much discussion about this very topic on occasion to see if we could facilitate a plan to have a consortium of care with different communities to lessen the cost of health care. And at the time that we discussed this, we realized that a lot of the city employees have Blue Cross Blue Shield, a very high-ended Master Medical or whatever, and I'm not saying, and we asked whoever we were dealing with, I don't know if it was Brian Martin, the former city manager, or what, but we asked if he could, in negotiations, ask if they could take an HMO. Not that HMOs are less. I have an HMO with my husband's insurance, and we get very good care. And we felt that maybe that wouldn't happen, that employees of the city were happy with what they had, and they would not resort to an HMO. They wanted to keep, that's fine, but then we discussed that perhaps new employees would have no choice but to have an HMO. Do you know anything about where we stand with that?
Do you, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Manager.
First time calling you Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Council, in our last negotiations with the city side and obviously the school side would be negotiated at the same time, we tried to do that. We were unsuccessful. What we are trying to do is especially to target both existing employees but especially new employees with information. And Kathy Taney's been very, very good with that in sending out packages every year during that enrollment period, which I think is in the spring, to show employees the differences in what it costs them, what it costs the city, but what it costs them as well between the two plans. We've had various discussions with Blue Cross Blue Shield as to what they are comfortable putting down in writing. The unions are looking for things that Blue Cross Blue Shield just are not willing to, at this point, to reduce to writing. But so what we're trying to do, when we're having some limited success, is try to educate, especially the new employees, that you get a better health plan for less money, going off the master medical. Blue Cross Blue Shield has told us that if you would open a new company, for instance, and have 200 or 1,000 employees, and go to Blue Cross Blue Shield and say, I want to offer my employees the master medical, they would not offer it. It's not an option. It's a dinosaur, and yet, especially municipalities, cities, and towns throughout the Commonwealth are really the only user, if you will, of this master medical for the most part. So it doesn't make any sense. Master medical is not preventive health care. It's when you get sick, they treat you. HMOs are preventive. They pay for physicals, things like that are not covered under the master medical. And so it makes no sense to me. When I changed myself when I found out the differences. And so what we're trying to do is educate, especially the newer employees of the city, and we're having some success. We are seeing the numbers rise of people coming in and choosing HMO over master medical. It's a very, very difficult thing to get rid of. It's a very, very I think it's an old wives' tale in many ways, but those types of things are difficult to combat. We're trying to do that the best we can. We are having some success, and we continue to educate the workforce, especially those new employees.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very good motion. May I suggest that we also look at the Massachusetts Municipal Association, because I do believe that as a consortium of municipalities and towns that they do have an insurance program. It's actually, when I was at the Housing Authority, we had the Massachusetts chapter of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, and they actually put together a consortium of housing authorities to provide health insurance, and they actually set it up whereby at the end of the year, housing authorities could actually get a premium in return, get actually money back if it wasn't actually spent by the participants in the program. So again, just a suggestion that something like the Mass Municipal Association should be looked at as well.
Okay, Councilor Ramirez.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, respectfully, on that same motion, Jim sort of took the thunder, but I know that at the last association, Charles Baker, the former Secretary of A&F and current president of Harvard Pilgrim, just spoke on those types of issues at the last meeting, creative financing for municipalities for health coverage. So that may be a start, as Jim said. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. I remember Mayor Mercier setting up a subcommittee of which I chaired, and we had our I guess consultant, and the difficulty that, if I remember correctly, is we are self-insured, meaning the premiums that the city pays or would pay if we weren't self-insured would far exceed the self-insurance option, meaning it's not worth. Unfortunately, the rising healthcare costs, it's in the city's best interest to just pay the claims out flat out rather than pay a company to insure us. I'll presume that's still the case because of the number of insurers that we have, but can we get, can we have Kathy Tierney come back and let us know, has that changed? Is there, some ratio that makes sense for us to go to a health insurance provider or, a Meyer insurance coverage? Because, we're not alone in this, and I don't know if Meyer is going through some regionalization effort, but it certainly makes some sense. But it may not be in our best interest to go to a premium-based, insurance coverage. Councilor Caulfield talks about $14 million. They're clearly not going down. Did we make any movement with the prescription coverage? I know that that was an issue that was hurting the city as well. Meaning, can we look at going through a particular company that can provide bulk these maintenance drugs, if you will. I know we looked at that at the subcommittee, and they continue to encourage, it's a Scripps, that's what it is, Scripps mail-in service. It's a lot cheaper for the city to pay that way.
Unfortunately, still illegal, according to the federal government.
I know we were going to the Canadian, I know that Canadian is
Right,
going to
exactly.
Canada for
That
drugs.
has
but
not changed
I
yet.
thought we had, at that meeting, there was a discussion, there are companies out there that, including, I believe it's Scripps, that, employees can mail in and get their, whether
The
it's
Canadian thing
Lipitor
is still illegal, but I guess we do have some sort of a form of a mail-in prescription thing, so I guess we're making some progress
Okay.
in that area.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Motion is adopted. The next motion is a motion by Councilor Rita Mercier that the City Council request the City Manager have the Public Works Department address snow removal and ice treatment of dead-end streets. Councilor Mercier.
Did I get a second?
Second by Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, like the manager says, Happy New Year to everyone. I just wanted to say that as well. This motion is relevant to the wintry times that are upon us at this time of year, as was quite evident over this night when we woke up and saw the snow, and the DPW and the contractors or whatever did an excellent job. So I in no way want to take away from the good work that they do, but I do have a concern here, and this is the motion that's in regards to the snow removal, sanding and salting on dead-end streets. And although I know that these dead-end streets are difficult to maintain, there's no doubt about that. Cars remain there, and when they could go to the garages and get off the street, and there's limited parking, the fact remains that people that live on these streets are taxpayers and deserve the same service that are allotted to people on non-dead-end streets. The difference is that it takes a little extra time because it's much more difficult to do that, and I know that, but we can't neglect the fact that there's dead-end streets. And the reason I'm saying this is because the very same people are calling me on every storm. I don't mind that. That's my job. I'm not upset about that, and I don't mind that they're calling, and I have an obligation to serve these same people that are frustrated with continually calling me and asking me to relay this message to you, Mr. Manager, how frustrated they are that they have to keep calling me every snowstorm. I keep telling them, I don't mind that you're calling me. I have to know that. And contractors probably overlooked it, and it's an honest mistake. But I know that the DPW and the private contractors do their best that they can do. I know that. It is just that I'm asking that all concerned to please do not overlook the dead-end streets, and they need to be plowed and sanded and salted. For example, a dead-end street in the Lower Highlands iced up like every other street. The sander came, and I have this thing that I call and say, could you back up? Because I know you can't just go down there, and because the sander is in the back, the salter is in the back. So if you continue to go down, the sander is in the back. So they back up, and they've been doing this. The last storm, the man called me again. They didn't come this past today. They didn't come over the nighttime because the person called me at every shot, and I asked him, please do that. The sander actually backed up and did not go to the end to take care of the last 4 houses. So every little thing that happens, they're going to call me, and I really don't mind that. But I'm asking, Mr. Manager, if you meet with the DPW tomorrow like you do on every Wednesday after a meeting, please go over this again. Let's not forget the dead-end streets. It's very important. They're part of the city as well, and I know it's very difficult, but I had to get this off my chest. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. The motion is adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott, that the City Council request the City Manager have the Law Department prepare the proper vote to require that all applications for building permits containing 500 or more square feet to go to site plan review. Second by Councilor Milonazo. There is somebody registered to speak.
Kristen Ross Sitkowich, 31 Elaine Street.
Happy New Year to you all. Okay, I'm here this evening to speak in support of Councilor Elliott's motion that would require site plan review for any development greater than 500 square feet. Over the past few years, many zoning changes have been made, some for the good and some for the worse. This process, admittedly, is very imperfect, or is imperfect. However, it is becoming crystal clear that the measures that are put into place are not working for our neighborhoods. While site reviews for planning board are intended as part of a review process for the abutters, it is more of a formality for developers to gain approvals on their projects. The abutters that go are just merely the audience. These meetings become a place where our residents are berated and disregarded. Now it would seem that some of our newer zoning changes have bypassed the public hearing process for many residential projects altogether. This is very troubling. More and more, residents are conveniently pulled out of the process of development and public hearing. Time and time again, when our neighborhoods are presented with inappropriate residential development, we find ourselves scrambling after the fact, after all means of legal recourse have expired. Why is this? And so it goes. We hear the same mantra from City Hall, but it's legal. It's a loophole. I would think with all the folks involved in these zoning changes, with all of their education, law experience, and expertise, they would somehow be able to manage to come up with zoning changes that do not have any loopholes at all. Continually, this is not the case. This makes me question whether these zoning changes were in fact done to actually deliberately include these loopholes. And if this were not the case, then there is a glaring discrepancy from the intent to the final outcome. And seemingly the same names come up in relation to these irresponsible developments over and over and over again. The same developers, the same builders, the same board members, same commissioners, same family members. When is it going to stop? I propose a moratorium to be placed on residential development until council, DPD, planning board, and legal department can all be on the same page on these issues. Intent and interpretation should be consistent from top on down. Sadly, this is not the case, and interpretation is subject to the whim of the planning board, the ZBA, the Conservation Commission, and the building commissioner. When is this council going to take responsibility for management that has allowed our boards to abuse their power in residents, giving free passes to unscrupulous developers, and continue to allow so-called loopholes to exist? I can guarantee you, more and more, there will be more people like myself who will not go away. And will keep hammering away at these issues to ensure that you are in fact accountable to the residents of this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I filed this motion as a result of calls from neighbors in the city. And first, the motion's not about slowing down economic growth or residential development in the city by any stretch, nor is it meant to overload staff at planning and development. But it just seems time and time again, having put this new zoning code in, there are some loopholes, if you will, that just seem to, it wasn't the intent of the zone, of our new zoning code. So I checked around this. This would be a new thing. I know the town of Swampscott, all applications for new construction or building permits over 800 square feet require site plan review. And I just think we're at the point where we should be cautious and careful and take a second look at some of these development projects before there's a foundation in the ground and there's a building structure already in place. And site plan review will, if there is discretion, and interpreting the code is sometimes a matter of opinion in some of these cases. So that's the intent of the motion. Is it 500 square feet or is it 1,000 square feet? I'm not really sure. I put down more a conservative figure just to be on the safe side. Maybe this needs to go to the zoning committee. I guess I would amend my own motion because it's, the intent is to protect the neighborhood. It's not to slow growth, but it's just to take a second look and, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, considering we do have a new zoning code, and it, some items can be interpreted, in a different manner. So that's the intent of the motion, and I thank you.
Okay. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that we can put some type of mechanism to slow the process down, so the neighbors and the neighborhoods have more of an opportunity for what they would consider a fair hearing, if that's what the gripe is. But I think we also have to understand that the boards are gonna be controlled by the zoning code itself and can only enforce what's there regardless of whether they have site plan review authority or not. That if there's an issue with the zoning, that needs to be addressed, because if they don't have the teeth with the code, it doesn't matter if you drag someone in for a hearing, and they're not gonna have an opportunity to make changes or affect the development in a positive way. So I think that I'd second Rodney's motion to, Council Elliott's motion to send it to the zoning subcommittee, because I think it's something that has to be looked at more than just saying, send it to site plan review, because if the proper tools aren't there for the particular board, there's nothing they're gonna be able to do about it.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good motion, and I know that there was much talk and much discussion, many, many hours spent in the zoning subcommittee to try to work and upgrade the zoning laws, and I know that they worked tirelessly. You did, Mr. Mayor, as well as the rest of the council that's involved with it. And I know that only projects that involve 4 or more homes are required to undergo a site plan review before the city's planning department. But there's a lot more that we could do to get the residents and abutters involved in what's going on in their city, in their neighborhood. I think that it's very important that we become more informative. I know that people probably think, no, if they're within the law, let it go. The way that it sits now, if they're within the law and they don't need any variances or special permits, then the abutters need not know or never know what's going on. But I'm thinking about the people in a particular neighborhood that didn't know what was happening till trees started being cut down. And when they saw the workers chopping down trees, they asked, what's going on in our neighborhood? Nobody even cares about that, it seems. We're doing a project and we're within the law. I think that anything that we as a council and the zoning subcommittee could do to keep the neighbors abreast as to what's going on, I say that whatever project, and I know it's going to be tedious, but whatever project is going on with building, neighbors should automatically be notified, in my personal opinion. I think that's something that the zoning board should take into consideration. And I also want to remind this council that some of our best ideas come from not this council, but by other people that bring it forward. And I say that because I'm thinking of what Curtis LeMay said, former city councilor, when he came here earlier this fall, and he said, anyone who pulls a building permit to post a weatherproof copy of it along with their home or home building project plot plan and a 5-foot sign that is visible from the sidewalk to let the neighbors know what's going on. Maybe it's far-fetched, but I think that's a tremendous idea. I'm not trying to run on his coattails as to what he's talking about, but I'm bringing it up as a messenger that I appreciate what he said, and I want to bring that up and see if we could refer that to the zoning subcommittee and take a look at that. I think it's imperative upon this council to be customer-friendly, resident-friendly, neighborhood-friendly, and let everybody know what's going on in their backyard. I personally feel that way.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor that's been amended by the maker of the motion that's to refer it to the zoning subcommittee, correct?
Yeah, I think that makes sense,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, and I think Council Mercier has a good suggestion, or former Councilor LeMay, that should probably also go there. I'm sure there's a number of items that maybe the new subcommittee has to take a look at, but I think that's an important issue, and I think it would send a good message to people in any neighborhood where there's any development going on, that they're going to know what's going on before it's too late.
Okay. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I just want to weigh in on this issue. When a new structure is being built in a particular neighborhood, and that structure affects the aesthetics of that neighborhood in a negative way, it creates frustration. And Mr. Mayor, the people who are frustrated are getting frustrated with this council for not acting and doing something about it. And, I support building and I support the city moving forward, but you cannot continually let these structures being built on a postage stamp, the one on Chancellor Street and one in particular. I've had many calls on that, and no site plan review. It was just put the foundation in. People were astounded when the cement trucks were backing up, pouring the foundation. And we're getting the phone calls. And the frustration is overflowing. And it has to be addressed, it has to be stopped.
Councilor Rita Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question. I don't know, it evades me. I don't know if I'm dreaming this or what. Did we as a council support a zoning change that specifically talked about any neighborhood where there's a new building coming up, the front door should face the street as compared to sliding in sideways? Did we support something like that, or is that a law, or?
Well, there are provisions that address frontage and streetscape in the zoning code, yes.
Well, I'm not concerned about the square foot or whatever, or the setback. I'm concerned about a street, a street, let's say, that every building that's being built or home on that street, the front door should face the street as compared to sliding it in sideways. And if that isn't a law, then it certainly should be.
I think there are provisions like
It
that in
is
the
a
new
law.
zoning code, yes.
It is a law, okay.
Yep. Okay, Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you. Just quickly, as you know, Mr. Mayor, you as chairman of the zoning subcommittee and I and Councilor Elliott worked many hours on the zoning code over the last 2 years, and we took many hours of testimony. Again, it's not a perfect document, but I think it's certainly better than what it was. But I do want to say for the record that we didn't intentionally put any loopholes in this new document. I think that, again, it's a work in progress, and I think that this is a good motion, and I think that the new zoning subcommittee will improve upon what the former zoning subcommittee was able to accomplish over the last 2 years.
Okay, all in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Right, the motion is adopted. All right, we'll go into the public hearings now. The first public hearing is a loan order to borrow an additional $1,750,000 for the purpose of financing construction and reconstruction of public parking facilities in the city of Lowell and cost incidental and related thereto. The public hearing is now open public hearing is open to hear from those in favor of this loan order. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Peter Rossella. I'm Assistant Superintendent at Lowell National Historical Park, 67 Kirk Street in Lowell, and I live on Parkview Avenue in Lowell. About 2 years ago, City Manager Cox appointed me to the Jam Parking Garage Designer Selection Committee as the only member of that committee who is not a city employee, and I thank him for that, and I've been glad to serve in that capacity. But I've witnessed, I'm here today to tell you that I've witnessed firsthand the excellent efforts of everyone who's worked on those many, many meetings over the last 2 years to create an efficient and attractive parking facility to be a catalyst for redevelopment in the Jam area. The meetings were well run, and the focus was very cost conscious every step of the way, I can tell you that. A very capable value engineering consulting firm was brought aboard to wring every dollar of possible savings from the project. Increases in construction costs due to the hurricanes elsewhere in the country have been a major factor in complicating that goal. I believe that the council subcommittee has seen the cuts that can be made to meet the budget, and I hope you would agree that there will clearly be a major reduction in the quality and functionality of this garage if those cuts happen. The original goal was to create a structure that will set the tone for the revitalization of the Jam area. Several major mill and commercial building projects are dependent on this project moving forward now. With the requested funding, I believe the goal can be met, and I urge your approval of the bond request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone else wishing, the public hearing is open for those wishing to speak in opposition. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? The public hearing for opponents is closed. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Peter Rossella for agreeing to serve on that committee, and Peter's done a fabulous job, and we're happy to see him back at work here after a little hiatus from his job. So I was happy to hear that he was coming tonight, and know that he's back at work. As Peter pointed out, we're in the midst of building this garage in the Jam area, and because of a lot of different things beyond our control, especially the cost of steel have risen greatly over the last few months. When we met with the subcommittee, we explained some of the things that Peter said, the value engineering aspects, which after the Stocklosa School, those were two words I never want to hear again, value engineering. And when they came up, I brought it immediately to the subcommittee to show exactly what was there. The subcommittee, I believe I recall, supported the increase unanimously, and we think it's important to go forward. We're very happy with the progress we're making there, and we think, although not pleasant, it's a necessary thing to do.
Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having been a member of that subcommittee, Mr. Manager, we were presented with the options that we were facing. I mean, the cost are the cost once the numbers came back in. And some of those options included reducing the size of the garage, which really did seem to defeat the purpose. We had done that once at one point, and now we had the size that is necessary in order to do what we wanted to do in that area. Be a catalyst, not just for the existing businesses, but for further development and for vacant mill space to become vital and part of this whole jam plan, and particularly the Hamilton Canal, or at least anchor that end of Hamilton Canal District. So that wasn't going to work, and or it's, in my opinion, I think the subcommittee, that was just foolish to cut corner at that point and really have an ineffective garage. And then some of the other options, cuts that would have made it really an unattractive building. I mean, we could have made some cuts. I don't think, my recollection was, we still wouldn't have gotten to the magic number of 1.7 million and change, but it would have completely changed the character of the building and what the streetscape. And again, this is, as Peter Arcel has said, intended to be a catalyst and an attractive building to really invest in that whole area. So despite, nobody's anxious to spend more money, but it just seemed the subcommittee had no other choice. The other aspect, in my recollection, is that we had asked for a report that still the idea is that the users of the garage will be paying for this bond, and that even with this increase, that's still the same. In other words, we're not going to, because the costs have increased, that's not going to go onto the tax rate or to the taxpayers, but will be absorbed by those who are using the garage. So it's another consideration. We want to keep the use, and the user fees as reasonable as possible, but we were also told that it's going to be paid for. The additional bonding is going to be paid that way.
Okay.
Move approval.
Motion to approve the loan order by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Ramirez. Do you want to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Mr. Manager, I was not present at the subcommittee, and I certainly accept the recommendation of Councilor Donahue and the rest of the members. What was the time table for the jam plan? Was it a 5-year timetable?
I don't know, Matt's here, Matt could probably go over that. I don't recall specifically. I don't know if it was from the very beginning, you mean?
Yeah, and let me, if I may, just so that you know what my intent of my questions are. If it was a 5-year plan, and I think we're going on 2.5, 3, is this a situation where we're going to have to keep bonding for this garage? Because obviously materials are constantly going up. And again, as a freshman member, I'm not up to speed, but I just want to know if we're going to be...
Councilor, to answer your first question, both the jam plan and the acre plan rather are 20-year urban renewal plans. In terms of the garage project, though, we still expect, let me just back a little, give you a little background information. The week before Christmas, we pre-qualified 5 general contractors and 50 subcontractors. They will get the bid documents that will go out to the public somewhere around the 3rd week of this month. We expect to have those bids back by the end of February. We expect to hopefully come to the council and do a bid award in the month of March, and we're still should be on schedule for groundbreaking in April. Right now, if you look at the site, the Barney's block has been demolished. If you remember from those members that were present at the subcommittee, we originally expected to find 5 underground storage tanks. In fact, we only found 1. probably the best environmental news that we've ever had on a site. The soil around the one tank that was removed has been tested. It appears to be clean at this point. Additional debris was removed from the site from previous structures, water pipes, foundation, rebar, things that initially set off the X-ray system that indicated that there would be more tanks. The next and last phase for the actual site work before the site is handed over to a contractor is the archaeological work. That has to happen in the month of February, but we are on track, as we have given updates to the council and the subcommittee before, to hopefully hand over that site in March and April, have that groundbreaking begin, and have the garage open and functioning probably in the early part of summer '07, virtually right on schedule.
Assistant Manager Coggins, thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I just want to be clear. Funding the debt service on the garage bonds, the garage receipts are not going to pay for it itself. It's the general operations of all the parking facilities, if I read this correctly. And I have to say, I'm a little bit concerned, Mr. Manager, looking at this projection. Only because a large part of the garage operation, the receipts, the revenue comes from parking citations, and I know that we're doing a good job collecting, past violations, and this projects 1.2. And with this new debt, that brings our surplus on an annual basis down to 450, which is a good number. Don't get me wrong, but I guess I'm a little concerned knowing what we just went through with free cash, that we're setting expenses and costs in place that particularly with the revenue from the 1.2 million from citations, which inevitably I think will go down. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's been a discussion about, are we going to get that much revenue on an annual basis from parking citations, or typically is there a reduction after, people start paying their meters and we don't issue that many citations? I get my concern is a revenue stream over a long period of time if we're going out with a 20-year note, and that's my first question. Sorry, Mr. Manager, it's a long one, but secondly, why are we going out with general obligation bonds? I mean, it's really a revenue anticipation note. And I just don't like to put this on the general fund, considering it really is revenue. It's a revenue anticipation note. I know that the memo says that there's a slight reduction in interest rates. What is the difference between those two?
Well, let me try to answer your first question. Hopefully Jimmy can answer the second one. After looking at the reports with what's happening with the revenue in that revolving account, we feel comfortable going forth that we are getting more aggressive. We've automated the parking meters. We've automated the garages. We are getting more aggressive with collection. So that's a good thing. And based upon that, looking forward, we feel that the revenues will in fact be there as we go forth to pay even the additional money on the bond. As far as general obligation versus otherwise, I don't.
That's what we're looking at right now, but we're also looking at creating a separate district over there. And there's a special way of financing whereby you also capitalizing interest. We're not sure yet how that's going to work, but it's all being worked on at the same time.
Well, by doing that certainly will reduce your debt service.
So be able to add it to the cost of the garage, and then over time you collect it when the money starts coming in.
I'm going to support this because I think it's important in that neighborhood. I supported it from day one. It's not going on the tax rate. It is coming out of the parking. The parking receipts. I just look at this. I just look at the receipt projection, and a big chunk of that is revenue the city receives from those individuals not paying their meters or parking tickets, etc. And I guess the good thing is we want that number to stay the same, and not that we want to give people more parking tickets, but we need that revenue as part of this projection. So I just want to caution that while on an annual basis there still is a surplus, and we do pay back the general fund for the debt that taxpayers have had in the past, I think that margin's getting a little bit close. Thank you.
Councilor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, or maybe to Mr. Coggins, are we putting an interim parking plan in place during the construction of the garage for the neighborhood?
Yeah, Matt could probably explain. I know we have one in place, yes.
Okay.
Counselor, we're actually, some of the negotiations that have been happening for land around the site of the garage are actually required for the parking mitigation, but we have worked with different agencies that have been affected by the land taking, and then also different businesses that have used that site to try to garner how much spaces are really going to be needed on a temporary basis. We have some illustrations as to how to create that temporary parking until the structure is complete, but none of that will be possible until we acquire the additional land in the target area.
It was brought to my attention that we may be running a shuttle bus from, again, this may not be the case, but running a shuttle bus from the Frudenberg site up and down Middlesex Street.
We've not done any scenarios involving the city taking on any transportation liability.
Okay.
What we have looked at is what are the costs associated with creating a usable parking facility, surface parking facility for those parties that are affected. But we've not incurred any liability on behalf of the city or even discussed that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's extremely vital that we support this loan order. We must support it. And as Councilor Donohue indicated, and my colleagues have indicated, that parking garage is going to be around for decades, long after I'm gone. And if we shortchange it, we're going to shortchange the people in the city. We're going to shortchange that garage. Let's build it the way we intended, and let's support this loan order.
Roll call.
Okay, there's been a motion by Councilor Caulfield to adopt the order, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Okay, there's a second public hearing, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 13 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. The public hearing is open for those wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the ordinance? In opposition? In opposition, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the council?
Move for approval.
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Rita Mercier, seconded by Councilor Arman Mercier. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, back to the motions. The next motion is a motion by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the City Manager have the Public Works Commissioner report on street openings after the deadline. Seconded by Councilor Ramirez. Councilor Elliott.
I think the motion speaks for itself, but I received a call from a constituent asking, there is a deadline when street openings are not allowed, and there seems to be some taking place. I know some of them are for emergency purposes, but, it is a concern because you open it and then it's open for the winter and, you can't put a hot top down. So I want to know for my own benefit what that deadline is and how many. Thought it was around
I think it's
November 5th.
November or December or something, Councilor. I'll get you a full
Mid-November.
report. I don't know exactly when it is.
All right, and I understand they have to be open for an emergency purposes, but, the roads are in rough shape for the rest of the year. So that's a motion. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Motion's adopted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, motion that the City Council request the City Manager provide guidelines for expending monies in the Senior Disability Contribution Fund, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that this was set up a couple of years ago, and I know I had filed another request, Mr. Manager, but there's a fair amount of money in that voluntary contribution fund that people can check off on their taxes. And I know that we need guidelines, and I believe there's a committee that has to be set up by you, Mr. Manager, on what we can do. And I'm just thinking it's going to be a cold winter and fuel costs are going up. I know Council Rita Mercier spoke on the issue also. It seems timely that I believe it's you and someone from the assessor's office and other individuals on, the money's been in there, why don't we use it, and or at least set up some guidelines on what it can be used for, and maybe it can't be used for fuel, but taxpayers have made that check and made a contribution, so that now might be a good time to use it.
I'll get
Or at
your
least
full-
put a
I'll get
plan
your
in
full
place.
report, Counsel.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure, but
Okay,
I'll find
thank
out.
you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. The motion is adopted. The next motion is a motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests the city manager have the Planning and Development Department report on the number of parking spaces relative to development of the old Burbeck's property on Pawtucket Street.
Second.
Second by Councilor Armin Mercier. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I've received a number of phone calls from abutters, people in the motorboat club across the street, and I thought it was worthy of bringing a motion as to the number of parking spaces that are proposed with this development. I understand it was just the hearing was continued at the planning board, but I believe the proposal is a little over one parking space per unit, and considering the parking issues and problems in that particular area, it didn't seem, and I know the zoning, again, you know, I believe there is some latitude as to how many can or cannot, how many parking spots can go with that development. I believe it's 40 units, 6 stories. The neighbors are concerned, as well as the proximity to the development, you know, close to the sidewalk. So I think there are a lot. I know the planning board has continued it, but I think we need to take a look and put adequate parking on that particular development. So whatever can be done, I told all the people that have called me that I'd bring it forward and bring these issues. So.
I'll get you. I'm not familiar with it myself, Counsel. I'll get you a full report.
Okay.
The, planning board.
Can we get a copy of the
Sure.
proposed
Yeah, whatever they
plan
have.
also?
Sure.
Because
Yep.
I don't know, I couldn't speak to it, but people that attended the planning board meetings
Yep.
are very concerned about it, so that would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good motion, and I did get some information dropped off to my house around 5:30. Actually, it was from the chairman of the planning board, Mr. Zaroulis, who informed me that the project actually is 36 units and there's 56 parking spaces. And the reason that he wanted to get some information for me to bring to the council as a result of Councilor Elliott's motion is to refer a suggestion to the solicitor's office that in trying to cooperate with the boat club across the street, because I also received a number of calls from the members of the boat club, that we look at trying to provide them an access off of Pawtucket Street through Sheehy Park. And again, he actually had someone from, someone that he knows actually draw up a site plan, and he asked me to refer that to the solicitor's office along with his suggestion. Again, this was at 5:30 this afternoon, so again, I just had received that. So I'd like to be able to do that, to refer it to the solicitor's office to report back. Again, this is just in trying to be a good neighbor to this particular development. It is, as he indicated, 36 units, 22 bedrooms, and 16 one-bedroom units with 56 parking spaces. And again, it's my understanding it's being heard this evening. So again, under the purview of the planning board, it's being heard this evening.
All right, so that's an amendment of the motion to not only get a report from the manager, but also from the law department.
Relative to that particular
Any
part.
objection to that amendment, Councilor
No
Elliott?
objection.
Okay. Councilor Broderick?
I'm sorry. That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I think that I also talked to Chairman Zaharoulis because I received several phone calls from people at the boathouse, and they seem to have two chief concerns. One is they've been allowed to use the property for access to turn around for their boats to get into their dock, and they were curious as to any other means of access, because I believe the fire and the police also use it for their emergency river vehicles, which I understand we can drop upstream, so that would take care of that. But I think that Council or the chairman had a good idea about exploring some other avenue for them to get in, some way for them to get into their dock, because it's private property. And they were gracious, and they did say that they understand they're not going to be able to use it forever. Whatever's built there is going to change their use. I did explain that it's my understanding that it's going to be 56 bedrooms and 56 parking spots. It's institutional zoning, and this is what I was getting at earlier with, if we are going to send things to a site plan review, we need to make sure that the zoning code has the teeth, because there's no ratio of parking spaces to bedrooms or visitor parking or anything else. So it's a difficult call for the planning board on that, in also dealing with the character of the neighborhood and the purpose of the zoning for the institution, the university right around the corner. So I understand it's on for a hearing tonight. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think that they're going, the plan, Councilor Elliott was asking, I think, is one parking spot per bedroom, and it's going to be 6 stories versus, I believe, they could go up to 8. So that's what I know about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. See, this is a perfect example of if they're within the rules, they don't have to notify any abutters. This is, the zone was recently changed to institutional, which means that at one point they could have had 2.2 parking spaces per unit, but I think now it's 0.75, this is what I'm hearing, per bedroom. I'm curious to know if it's how many 1-bedrooms. I know they said it 1 bedroom and there's some 2 bedrooms. And I'm thinking, in today's day and age, you have 2 cars, I don't know, 2 cars. So if you have a 2-bedroom and a husband and wife and whatever, and then you have the visitors, I don't know that there's an adequate amount of parking available. But abutters never had to be notified about this, but somehow the word get out there, and it's a shame people have to find out that the word get out there, but they're meeting right now, 6:30, the meeting took place. The Lowell Motorboat Club has called me as well, and Councilor Broderick did say everything that had to be said, but I'm concerned about the parking as well. It doesn't seem like there's an adequate amount of parking, and if there's people that aren't, abutters that aren't concerned about it, and nobody speaks about it, things happen. But if you go and you're a concerned abutter, then it's, you know, you can voice your opinion and try to have them conform to your wishes in some degree. And yes, this is 100 feet that they could go up, which is 8 stories. They're only going up 6 stories. But I don't know how that conforms to the persona of the neighborhood. I don't know how that happens, but be that as it may.
Okay, Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've received many phone calls as well, and the main complaint, the main issue is the parking. And speaking to my colleague, Councilor Broderick, I'm concerned about the parking. From what I understand, you're supposed to have at least 1.5 parking spots per unit, and that doesn't hold true with this type of construction. And believe me, that would be a no-no as far as I'm concerned. And the meeting tonight, aren't they, the planning board?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. The motion is adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Ramirez. The City Council requests the city manager take necessary steps to have the mayor's reception room wired in order to televise zoning board of appeals and planning board meetings. Seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, the intent of the motion, as you know, is to provide more government access to the citizens of Lowell by having the mayor's reception room wired in order to televise some of the city's more prominent boards. As you know, the zoning and planning board are 2 of the more prominent regulatory boards in the city, and they have a considerable amount of authority, and their decisions often significantly alter the landscape of the neighborhoods. There's been a fair amount of development, residential and responsible development, in the downtown and the neighborhood. However, there's a fair amount of the projects that have caught the eye of the media, the historic board, the neighborhoods, the council itself. And for these reasons, I think that we need to take actions and steps to inform the public. I've heard it said a number of times tonight. It's been paraphrased differently, Mr. Manager. One of the biggest complaints I've heard is that folks don't find out about development until the large equipment shows up. And I think that's too bad. The citizens of Lowell, Mr. Manager, have a right to know what's going on in their city. And more importantly, we've got the capability to do it, to inform them. This initiative will allow more citizen participation. I hope that we can get some debate on this issue. I look forward to a lot of discussion on it, but I ask the members of the council to join me in supporting this motion tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. I think we need to look at some of the complicating factors or some of the issues. The planning board meets over in DPD. That would be one issue. I don't know scheduling-wise if the rooms are available. If I understand there's a cost. There's obviously a cost to wiring the rooms, but that's something we would need to look at in terms of scheduling-wise. But as important as televising the meeting, because hopefully, I sat on the board and I tried not to say anything I wouldn't say that if a camera was on. But I think as important, or maybe more importantly, is if we're going to televise the meetings, maybe we need to make sure we advertise what's going to be on the meeting so people even know, they know when it's going to be, what's coming up. I think that's probably as important or more important, because if there's a particular issue that's important to a neighborhood or a neighbor, and they see it on the cable access in a bulletin form or whatever, that they'll be just as apt to come down. Some may not be able to do it, so I would support the motion to televise it, but I think we got to make sure that we also televise the agendas and make sure people have access to the information to know what they're looking at or what's going to be coming up.
If I may, Counselor, first of all, I don't think it's right that neighbors find out about development when it's happening either. I'm not a proponent of that. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. We did a couple of years ago begin to open up the process by putting, I think, agendas of various board meetings in the council packet, so council would be made aware of it. I'd be happy to look at the feasibility of wiring the mayor's reception room, the DPD room, wherever else, and the costs associated therewith. So, I mean, we'll be happy to ask LTC or anybody else to look at it, what costs may be associated with that, and come back with a full report to the council.
Okay, Councilor Mercier?
Thank you,
Councilor Rita Mercier, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Martin. Oh, I'm not used to this yet either. And when you say Councilor Mercier, I don't know which one that you're talking to. But I know that we talked about wiring the mayor's reception room at one point, and it's only a suggestion. I don't know why we can't use this room. I know that at 6:30, the ZBA meet across the hall every other, but twice a month they meet at the same time as we do. I don't know why that Monday they couldn't meet here, and I'm not trying to tell them, but Monday they could meet here. I don't know what this is used for, but Tuesday we meet here, so that's probably off limits. Wednesday, maybe if they met opposite the school committee meetings, they could meet on Wednesday. The planning board could meet here on a Thursday, right down the line. I know this room is just going to waste if nobody's using it. We're already wired for sound, as Nom Noel would say, and it is a good motion. I remember some years ago, we had the License Commission meeting here at 3 o'clock, and you tune into it. I don't know whatever happened, but it was taken off the air. I don't know if it got too ruckusy or what happened, but it is a good motion. I like to inform the public, and I did hear that you did watch your temper there at the planning board meetings. Thank you.
Councilor Armin Mercier?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, it is a good motion. Transparency is important. I don't think the planning board should be meeting in a planning office. I think major boards and commissions should meet right here and be televised. And if we need to wire the mayor's reception room to give more access to that, I'm in favor of that. The only caveat I have to say, however, is that I hope that LTC is able to handle this. In the last 4 examples that I'm going to specify to you would indicate to me they're not capable of doing this. We had a meeting on December 13th that honored Councilor Howe. 30 minutes of that meeting was not at all brought home to the people because of some problem here. We had an unveiling just recently that was supposed to continue to play, and I had a constituent call me and said, what happened? Because right about the time you were speaking, they switched over to the University of Lowell, which is, again, a problem. LTC, in my opinion, have got to put their act together. They are absolutely, they just don't know what they're doing. I mean, one of the things that most people in Lowell look for is the ability to watch the television because they can't come down here and see a council meeting full, or to see subcommittee meetings when they televise it. They've been absolutely horrible with this. There were just 4 examples just recently, and I brought this to the attention of Mr. Haig, and I told him that he ought to spend a little time to find out what is happening to the mechanism that is supposed to carry these messages home to the people. And I absolutely agree that the zoning board of appeals and the planning board should be televised, providing they're televised properly. And that I would hate to have a constituent say, gee, I was watching the ZBA meeting, and just about the time a constituent was going to talk about it, the thing went off the air. So if there's any agreements made with LTC to do this, they've got to put their act together. It's been horrible production in the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's just been incredible. And we get the complaints at home. I remember one particular night where Mayor Mercia received a call from her husband. So you guys are not even on TV, okay? And I think that they've got to put their act together here. It's not run properly at all. It's just incredible. It's one complaint after another. Now, I'm not faulting the young people who are volunteering and who are working and putting this together. I'm faulting the hierarchy of LTC that probably needs to do an assessment of their equipment and do something about it. So I support this motion. I think it's a great idea. But I also think that we need to wire the mayor's reception room and to utilize this room here more often to televise those things because the people really want this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is a very good motion because where we're headed now, and it's going to cost some money. I mean, technology, both from the telecommunications as well as the websites of the city, you know, a lot of the information that Councilor Broderick's talked about, agendas, people are getting much more used to going onto a website, clicking, getting agendas and things like that, that we have the ability. It takes more time and effort to get it done. But, you know, in this day and age, people do not come down to City Hall. However, what's happening here, be it in the City Council chamber, subcommittee meetings are extremely important, and I think that's one of the reasons I believe wiring the mayor's reception room is critical, because we've had some very, very substantive subcommittee meetings that, you know, you get a summary or a recap here, but people would be interested. All of this, however, in addition to the hard wiring and the cost there, translates to more, you know, man or woman power from LTC to man the cameras, and that's always an issue. But it is one of the critical community access issues for the city, and I think it's only getting more so. People do want to know. They do want to know what's going on, and they will depend on this kind of coverage if we provide it. So I know we get a percentage of monies each year from Comcast. Their rates have gone up. Hopefully the money coming from them has gone up, and there's a decision that gets made as to how much is with LTC, how much goes to Channel 22 and so forth. But maybe that's another source of funding that we look at and say, you know, what are we doing right now in terms of allocating those monies? What can be done with that? And just look at that as a revenue source. But I think it's very, very important in this day and age that we do televise as much as we can for the public.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, what Councilor Armin Mercia said, I think is true. The easiest thing would have them come in here. It's all wired. The equipment is here. The school committee meets, I think, every other week. Planning ZBA meets every other week. I mean, maybe we could do some sort of a schedule,
Right.
at least in the short term. And have to talk, obviously, to the law department and see how we have to do this to see if we can at least get that going. I don't know what nights the planning board meets, but I think it's Monday night.
Right.
Normally, is it, Kevin? Councilman Barrett. And so, sorry, excuse me for that. We could check with them, and we could try to. I mean, that'd be the easiest thing if they could meet in here, where it's already wired, and I think the expense would be cut way down.
Just as another example, this morning, the inauguration was not, it was televised, but there was no audio until a roll call was taken. And I'm telling you, it's, they need to look at their operation and do something about it.
Okay, Councilor Milanazzo.
Just on that point, if I could, following up on Councilor Armin Mercia's point, when they were called, actually, unfortunately, my parents could not attend this morning, and when they called, because there was no audio, they were told that the city should invest and upgrade the equipment. So I just want you to just get an understanding of what their mindset is when they...
Tell me who they talked to.
That
I can talk to you maybe after the meeting's over to get a name.
Right, exactly. But
I can't tell you how much money we turn over to LTC.
I understand, Mr.
every year.
Manager, I do. But that, again, just to let you know what their mindset was, that, you know, their reaction was that the city needs to. And then in the same turn, when I was watching Channel 10 last week, they were advertising zoning board of appeals agendas for November. And it was, again, it's not our fault, but it certainly needs to be looked at, that they would be, you know, showing something that's almost 2 months old. But again, the motion is a good motion. One that I'll
Councillor
support.
Elliott?
Yeah, I agree with the motion, and it's a good motion. And I understand Councilor Milonazo saying that it's not our fault, but we all spoke here tonight. It's our responsibility, because we are responsible for signing the franchise agreement. We're responsible for negotiating and executing that contract with LTC, and the people and residents have come to not only rely, but to expect, you know, good coverage of this meeting. This is where they get their information, and we want them to tune in. They want, and people want to watch their meetings, and it's not only the council or the school committee meetings, but it's zoning and planning board, and I've gone through a number of communities, and all of them televise their selectmen and or planning board or things of that nature. So, but Mr. Manager, I just want to follow up to a memo from Dave Fenton dated June 15th of this year, and he cites that they had Great Northern Video in from New Hampshire and to look at the mayor's conference room, and there was concern that, you know, wiring will damage the newly refurbished woodwork. But he seems to make it pretty clear that Section 5.7 of the Municipal Access Channel of the license agreement, that they should have at this point have already done remote camera access. And the licensee shall pay for it, and at the cost of $35,000 paid by the issuing authority, Article 5, blah, 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 on the second floor, mayor's reception room for meeting coverage. And he also indicates there's 180 deadlines. So I'll give you a copy of this, just that, you know, something has been done. They were having another company come in to look at providing this remote camera access, which makes sense. You don't need to ruin the the room that was done over. You can just, you know, put it in and use remote access. So I don't know, maybe that can be done in the planning board, the planning office, but it seems to make sense. People, you know, come to City Hall for zoning board, planning board, all of the regulatory board meetings. So, but on the short term, having them in here makes sense. So, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real briefly, I apologize for chiming in twice on this, but as I heard fellow council speak on this, I was thinking that perhaps we could look at is a way to defray some of the costs of this. I don't know what they're going to be or what it may be, but I know in the planning board side that when I was on, we hadn't done anything with the fees in a couple of years. So maybe we can look at the fees for the applications and whatnot for the different boards that are going to be televised to see if we can defray some of the costs. Either startup costs of the equipment and or the programming, so that it can be a little bit of a user-friendly system. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I totally agree with Councilor Rita Mercier's use of this facility right here, the council chambers. It's available on Monday night, and it's available every other Wednesday night. We already have 4 cameras, and it's here for our use until we come up with a system that we can televise in the mayor's reception room. I also like to pick up on Councilor Armin Mercier's remarks on the planning office. It's like going into a closet meeting. If you had 4 major projects there, people are out in the hallway, there's not enough chairs, they get frustrated. We have to be user-friendly and service the public. So that's long overdue, long overdue. And City Hall has nothing to hide. I think let the general public know what's going on at these board meetings. It is a good motion. And you could start televising the next planning board meeting here on a Monday night. You could start televising the next ZBA meeting on an off night that the school committee's not using these chambers. Very simple. And if we have to upgrade the personnel that's running the cameras, running the equipment, so be it. But it's there. It's ready to be televised anytime we want.
Okay, Counselor Donahue and Counselor Rita
No, I was just
Mercier.
going to say, right about now, given the comments, they probably turned us off again, but
Counselor Rita Mercier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm thinking about how, at one point, the LTC had volunteers here, and they were in the back room, and I don't know, they were told to leave, and they put paid people there. I don't know that, I know paid people do a wonderful job, but the volunteers certainly did as well, and I don't know why they can't utilize that. Part of the program could be that you want to get involved with the LTC and the training and stuff. Your community service portion of it would be to televise a meeting or two. How's that? Like we do up at the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Anyone else? Counselor Ramirez?
Yep. Mr. Mayor, I don't know that we voted on this, but I'm not insensitive to cost, and the idea to have the meetings televised here certainly has merit while the manager initiates the steps to have the mayor's reception room wired.
Okay, so I think there is unanimous support for the motion, right? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
There will be a report back from the manager about the mayor's reception room and Mr. Manager about what would it take to start meetings here. Okay. All right. There was some discussion about subcommittee tonight, and I will put a list of the active subcommittees in the packet. If members could just express their preferences to me, and we'll have those assignments made as soon as possible.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilor Armin Mercier to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All in favor, say aye. Meeting's adjourned.